Are we in the other session?
We're in the other
Yes, we
session, yes,
are.
because I
So,
see the end.
so you see my screen.
Yes, we can see
Yes.
it.
Perfect. So that's good.
Welcome, everyone. We start in 1 minute.
Good day, everyone. My name is Nabil, and I'm the Academic Program Coordinator for the Data Programs at the McGill School of Continuing Studies. Today, we're going to be talking about generative AI. And with us, we have Rihana Msadek, who works at Google as a customer engineer and is someone that has a tremendous amount of energy and drive, and is someone who really wants to understand how to apply things with customers. So I spent time with her, and I always find her very impressive with her dedication to the craft and willingness to spend time asking questions and finding solutions. So I'll turn it over to her and have her kick off the session where she'll present, and then we'll have a period for question and answers at the end. Rihanna, all yours.
Thank you so much, Nabil. I'm very excited to be here today. My name is Rihana Msadek, and today we're going to talk about generative AI. So, I'm ready for 1 hour of content and ready for lots of time to give you the chance to ask all of your questions. So if you have any question or you don't understand one concept that I talk about, please do not hesitate to stop me and I'll be more than happy to explain the concept again. So, in our agenda today, we will do a quick introduction. We will talk about what is generative AI. We will briefly discuss what are the differences between enterprise needs and consumer needs. And then we will talk about the latest generative AI technologies. And finally, how can we leverage it in businesses or also for personal projects. So Nabil told me to do a quick introduction about myself. It won't take long. I am simply someone who's very passionate about AI and data science. I started my journey 7 years ago in that field, and every day I discover a new thing. It just makes me more passionate about the technology. So, right now, I work at Google as an AI ML customer engineer. Previously, I worked as a data scientist at IBM, and I also worked a lot in research as a research scientist in AI and machine learning. So, everyone is talking about generative AI, but sometimes we do not take a break and talk about what is generative AI. Everyone knows that AI is a technology that helps us do some classification, forecasting, regression. But what is generative AI and why everyone is talking about it? So, uh, generative artificial intelligence is a type of artificial intelligence that can create new content. And that new content can be text, it can be images, it can be audio, it can be video, um, it can be code, it can be 3D images, and soon we don't know what it can generate. It's quite impressive. But before I start digging deeper into the ability of this technology, I wanted to share with you all a quick video on how Google is imagining generative AI being implemented in our Google search. Second. I think we cannot hear the sound.
If you want the sound to be heard, I think you need to share and click a checkbox for a sound also to be shared at the same time.
All right.
It might require more permissions from your computer, so let's hope this goes smoothly.
Okay, just give me 1 second. Let me see if I can do this separately in 1, 2 seconds. I'll open the link. Still, I think we don't have the sound, but it's okay. So I shared this video. Unfortunately, we were not able to see to hear the sound. It gives some sounds to the video, but it's okay. I wanted to share this mainly because why are we using generative AI today in Google search? And Google search is one of the tools that probably billions of users are using it every day. It's because we're trying to make the experience for everyone easier and smoother, and we make generative AI as if you have so many analysts or so many creative agents working for you. This is the way I see generative AI, whatever the tool is it DALL-E, Midjourney, Google Palm, whatever the model is. I think about generative AI as a tool that we can leverage every day to make us more productive and more creative. And this video was just an example on how to leverage that. So let me share my screen again. And because it is a great tool, we also have to be very careful. And that's why I decided to start with this slide before getting into the details. So each one of us, we plan to go on trips, or we would like to generate some content for our LinkedIn, or we would like to write a poem, or we would like to just have fun and maybe generate few images using certain prompts. These are our needs, our consumers. Enterprises have totally different needs. If you're working in a company, you, the exact same person who's listening to this presentation today, you have different responsibilities. So if you are in a company, then you need to make sure that whatever tool you're using, that this data is controlled, this data is safe, because some of this data can be confidential. It is a big risk. You cannot just use whatever tool you find on the internet because it may put your company in risk. You're also worried about the costs because you're probably not the only person using it in a company. It can be your team, which is 20 people, but it can also be all of your customers, which are 100,000 people. So using these tools may have very large costs. So instead of you prompting and paying a subscription for, let's say, $10 or $20 a month, if you're a company, you think about how to scale this into providing these large language models or these tools to thousands of people without having to pay millions of dollars at the end of the month. You also would like to ensure accuracy and security. And what do I mean with that? I mean that if you are a company, you cannot provide a chatbot on your website where the website is going to have some bias. If the website is going to say some discriminatory answers, you need to make sure that these tools are very safe. You also would like your answers to be grounded. You don't want to give an answer that the model was basically trained on, but has never been grounded on your own data or has never been fine-tuned on your data. You don't want the model to be very generalistic if you're working in the medical field. You don't want your model to be very generalistic if you're answering security questions. So that's why I wanted to start today by telling everyone that last year, now it has been probably 15 months that we had these tools available for all of us. And everyone found it as a magical tool that we wake up in the morning, we want to write an email, we go and open some of these tools and we ask for help. It's amazing. I cannot describe to you how happy I feel when I use a large language model and it helps me become more productive. But we need to do our work and we need to do our research on whether these tools are safe for us to use in an enterprise format or not, whether these models are secure for our data, for our confidential data or not. So I wanted to do this introduction at the beginning to make sure that anything I am going to discuss today is done as developed for enterprises and not for consumers. It doesn't mean that consumers like you and I cannot use it. It means that it is just safer for everyone. Now let's talk a little bit about generative AI technologies. And this is probably not news for anyone, but I wanted to start with a model that I personally had the chance to work with for a long time. This is a model that was published to everyone at the beginning of last year, and people were using it through Bard. So this model has been trained on more than 3 trillion words, and as a large language model, the main task of Palm was to understand language. Because there are a variety of models today, and at Google we have more than 130 models, I wanted to just focus on a few models that I use daily to show you the difference between all of these models and how you can leverage them. So there are models that specialize mainly on text or language tasks. These models are great if you would like to generate any type of content, if you would like to write emails, if you'd like to summarize reports, if you'd like to translate between languages. These models are efficient, they are optimized for these tasks, and they have been trained from the ground up on text languages and different languages. Then the same model, which is bound to, has been fine-tuned on different and two specific domains. So this is why we developed two specific models, one for life science and healthcare, and one for cybersecurity. So for people who don't know about MedPalm, today we do have a model that specializes in the medical field. This model can be great for insurance companies who would like to analyze the insurance claims and see what the patient has, what are the risks, and also give some recommendations. It can also summarize patient reports and help nurses recognize what the patient is actually having as a current issue and give some recommendations. So MedLM is one of our in-house built models and can be very useful for nurses, medical doctors, insurance companies, and anyone who has to deal with medical documents. On the other hand, we do have SecPalm, which is very similar to MedLM or MedPalm, but is mainly for cybersecurity professionals. So it helps you understand or summarize cybersecurity documents. It's very good for training cybersecurity professionals. If you do have 50 pages of documentation on how to make your software secure, SigPalm is the best model for you to summarize this and to highlight what are the biggest threats. So today we talked about Palm 2, which is one example of large language model that specializes in text, but we also talked about very specific or domain-specific models, and these are an example that you can leverage a model to your specific domain. Why did I mention these three models at the beginning? It's because today we are talking to a variety of audience, and maybe some of you have your own domain. So if you do work in, let's say, the mining industry or in the manufacturing industry, and you would like a model that understands very well this domain, then what you have to do is leverage one of our models or any model that you can fine tune, and then you can fine tune it on your own data and make it more specific to what you're working on. Now, there are other models that I wanted to share today, and these models are what we call Google Foundation models, which means these models have been developed and the code was written within Google and then shared with the whole world to be used. There are so many foundation models. You probably heard of Llama 2 that Meta invented. You probably heard of Claude 2, Claude 3 that Anthropic developed. All of these models are foundation models because they are mother company invented, developed, trained, which takes a lot of resources and efforts, and then they published for the world to use. So the first model I wanted to discuss is Imagen. So Imagen is a great model if you would like to create or customize images. So if you would like to generate an image of, let's say, one of your products, but instead of um, doing putting the whole marketing budget and traveling to shoot this product, and here you see some eyeglasses to shoot this product on the beach or um, close to a building, you can simply just take random pictures of your product and then ask the model to change the background to whatever place you want. Another great use case for Imagen is that you can actually do some questions and answering to your images. For example, you get an image and you would like to understand what's happening in the picture, you can ask the models very specific questions and the model is able to answer your questions. Imagen today has a new version called Imagen 2 and is also able to understand your videos. So think about it as if, let's say, have videos of traffic lights and you'd like to understand if someone is crossing the red light, then you can literally ask the model what is happening in the video, if there is any illegal actions that is happening on the street, and it will give you specific answers with time slots. So this is an example of a model that specializes in image and video and that takes as an input an image and gives you as an input either a text, image, or also a video. The other model I wanted to talk about today is called Sherp. Sherp is one of my favorites. Why? Because many of the very big companies, especially in retail, they do have call centers. And usually, when do we call a call center? We don't call a call center and spend 30 minutes to just say, hey, my experience was amazing. We usually call when the experience was frustrating, or we would like to return a product, or we would like to do something that we were not able to do without the help of the customer agents. So Sherp comes to the rescue to make sure that the speech-to-text functionality in our models is very accurate. So I believe that Sherp has an accuracy of 98% and is available for over 300 languages. Before researching on the model, I actually did not know that we do have 300 languages available in the world. But this model understands different dialects. So, for example, for a more concrete example, because we all live in Canada and McGill is a Canadian university, so there are different types of French. There's the French Québécois, there's the French from France. So Sherp is able to understand the French Québécois, it's able to understand English, it's able to understand English with different types of pronunciations. So this model can enable you to understand the language, but also if you do have lots of noise in the background, let's say someone is calling but is, at the same time is driving a truck, and there's so many noise in the background, it's able to reduce the noise and to recognize still the language. And we will show you a demo later on that. The latest model for the foundation models is Cody. And you probably saw in the news this AI developer that everyone is talking about from Devon AI. So it's not science fiction. It all starts with a model that is proficient and very good at generating code. So, more than a year ago, we developed and launched a model called Cody. And I'm sure that there are so many other language models that are specialized in generating code over there. But what does Cody do? Cody is able to generate code out of natural language. So if today you are a junior developer and you would like to call a certain API and you don't know how to code in Python, then you can simply say, hey, I want you to generate a Python function that calls the Vision API, or that calls the Sherp API, or that calls the Imagen API. And then the code is going to generate that the model is going to generate the code for you in a structured way. Another use case is that you start coding, but then you ask the model to complete the code based on the syntax that you used before. Another use case, and I find this in a very high demand today, is because when you are a developer joining a new team, um, sometimes people leave the company and they don't document or they don't explain their code. So this type of models can document the code. They can add literally comments to every single line of code. I use this functionality often when I am using code that on GitHub or a code that I have never used before. So I simply copy and paste the code, go to a Cody interface, and ask the model to explain the code. Many of these models, I want you to start doing a reflection on how can I leverage them to increase my productivity? How can I leverage them to increase profit for my business? How can I leverage them to decrease the cost for my business? And because we are advancing in a very fast paced field today, you will see that so many of these models are going to be already integrated in different softwares. So Cody, for example, is already integrated in different solutions on Google Cloud. So if you open a workstation, or even if you open Google Colab have millions of users. It's an open tool where people can use it to write code. So if you do get an error on Google Colab, the first thing that comes to you is a suggestion that this error might be caused by this or that, and this is all due to Cody in the backend. So um, these are implementations that companies like Google already thought about, but how would you think about it if you would like your employees or your colleagues or yourself to be more productive? So that's why I wanted to start with all these models to make sure that you gain insights on how to leverage them. Finally, I wanted to, well, it's not the final model, but finally I got into a model that I love. I love so much and I use on a daily basis. It doesn't mean that I don't use other models like GPT or DALI or Midjourney. I love all of these models. It's just that Gemini is integrated into my workflow, so that's why I decided to focus on it today. So, Gemini is the result of lots of research that has been done by Google Research and Google DeepMind. So Gemini is a very special model, and I put it after the foundation models because it kind of combines many of these models that we discussed earlier. And why is that, Rihana? Why is Gemini different? I'll tell you that. So Palm 2 understands language, Chirp understands audio, Imagen understands images, um, and Cody understands codes. Well, Gemini understands all of them. I always try to think of these multi-model um, language models or large models as people. And I know that they are very different from people, but the most simplistic way to explain Gemini is as if you wake up in the morning and you have 1,000 employees working for you. These employees, they speak dozens of languages. They have seen millions of images. They understand millions of videos. They can talk. They can understand. They can reflect. They're actually smarter than me in many ways. And I can just have access to them easily. This is exactly how multimodal um, uh, um, multi-model models are. They have multi-modalities. Modalities can be text, can be audio, can be video, can be images. So Gemini is today's Google most capable family of models. Gemini is not one model, it comes in 3 different formats because these models are big. So we're talking about billions of parameters. And if we would like to develop a model like this, it will take us months to train. It will take us lots of resources. It can be GPUs, it can be TPUs, and it will take us also technical resources, researchers, machine learning engineers, AI infrastructure engineers to put that in place. So companies like Google or OpenAI or Microsoft or Apple or Meta, they developed all of these models and they put it out there for the world to use. Either as an open models like Gemma, for example, we'll talk about it, or as a model that you can leverage through an API, or you can pay a subscription to use it. So I wanted to share a video about Gemini, but I know that my audio doesn't work. So I will summarize the video quickly. Maybe I can share it and explain it. So what you can see in the video is that the user interacting with Gemini is actually drawing something on the paper, and Gemini is guessing what is the word, what is the animal that was drawn in the picture. So finally, after adding so many details, Gemini is recognizing that it's a duck, and then it gives some understanding or explanation on what a duck is. So it's too bad we don't have the voice, the sound, but Gemini is also able to play with you, to interact with you. It's actually able to be very proactive with you. So the game was I'm going uh, to put an icon on the map, and I want you to recognize which country it is. Yeah, we cannot hear it. So I will share the link. What we can do is that I will share the link in the chat and maybe the audience can watch it later. Nabil, how does that sound? Okay. So I'll share it later once the presentation is done, and it's very entertaining because when we first watched this video at Google, we were like, this is going to change the world. And I believe that the word has been changing since more than a year with every model that comes out. And you probably also saw different models that generate videos today, and people are rethinking about the movie industry. This is how um, large language models are going to impact our lives, and we should use it in an effective way and not be scared of it, because if it can do something, it's only going to improve our lives. It is very similar to what fire and electricity did, but probably with a higher impact. So that's why I'm very excited about these models today. Let's move to the next slide. There's another model that came out recently, and this model in particular has had a breakthrough long context understanding. So many of you have probably tried Gemini, Palm 2, GPT 3.5, GPT-4. All of these models, they have a limit in their context understanding. So they do have probably 32,000 tokens. One token is for characters. So a few hundreds of pages that you can leverage uh, to add as a context to your model. So these models have been able to understand your question and whatever context you add to the model. The Gemini Pro 1.5 is exceptional in a way that it can take up to 1 million token. We're talking about thousands of pages of context. So you can literally put different books and then ask the model about this book. So think about it as you have some earning reports and you'd like to analyze, you'd like to compare the results between 2021 2022. You would like to understand what happened in that month, what happened in if it's a story, what happened in that scene, what happened with this personality. I actually do have also a video on Gemini Pro 1.5. Let me see if mm, I will stop sharing my screen for a second. I will let you talk for 1 minute, Nabil. I'll try to figure out this technical problem very quickly.
Sure. So I think the best thing to do is to share again, and then in the share, like at least when I see it, there's a place next to the screens that says share computer audio. So
Oh, yes.
yes,
Thank you. But I think it.
you just click on it. Yeah.
If it doesn't let you click, it may be that you haven't given your
That.
operating system access to
Because
the outgoing audio.
multimodal, not only can it reason about information from text, it can also reason about figures. So let me show you something really neat. With our refreshed data set, we can now ask Gemini to update a graph from the original study. We first gave
Okay, so now I am going to share my screen.
This is a demo of long context understanding, an experimental feature in our newest model, Gemini 1.5 Pro. We'll walk through a screen recording of example prompts using a 44-minute Buster Keaton film, which comes out to over 600,000 tokens. In Google AI Studio, we uploaded the video and asked, find the moment when a piece of paper is removed from the person's pocket and tell me some key information on it with the timecode. This screen capture is sped up, and this timer shows exactly how long it took to process each prompt. And keep in mind that processing times will vary. The model gave us this response, explaining that the piece of paper is a pawn ticket from Goldman & Company pawnbrokers with the date and cost, and it gave us this timecode 1201. When we pulled up that timecode, we found it was correct. The model had found the exact moment the piece of paper is removed from the person's pocket, and it extracted text accurately. Next, we gave it this drawing of a scene we were thinking of and asked, what is the timecode when this happens? Multimodal prompt, where we combine text and image in our input. The model returned this timecode, 1534. We pulled that up and found that it was the correct scene. Like all generative models, responses vary and won't always be perfect. But notice how we didn't have to explain what was happening in the drawing. Simple drawings like this are a good way to test if the model can find something based on just a few abstract details, like it did here. These are just a couple examples of what's possible with a context window of up to 1 million multimodal tokens in Gemini 1.5 Pro.
Do you want to share your screen? Yeah, excellent.
Sorry for that. So I'll just come back to the last.
This is on just a few abstract details, like it did here. These are just a couple examples of what's possible with a context window of up to 1 million multimodal tokens in Gemini 1.5 Pro.
So why did I want to show this example in specific? It's because this is going to be revolutionizing, and I would think the manufacturing industry at least. If anyone is looking for anomaly detection, the context window of Gemini Pro 1.5, which is up to an hour of video, is actually unique. If you'd like to detect any anomaly in whatever field it is, transportation, in the streets, security, if you'd like to detect what is happening in manufacturing, which cars are driving, which trucks are going, this enables you to do it, and this is not science fiction. We do give access to Gemini Pro 1.5 for our customers, but for also developers who would like to experiment before we put it as generally available. And I personally tried it, and that was impressive because the model is not only very smart with the parameters that it has because it has been trained on very large amounts of data, but the model is able to very quickly, in few seconds, to understand the context of the whole video or the whole text and summarize or answer questions and be very meticulous in answering the questions. So Gemini Pro 1.5 for me is a way of it's like a way to say we do have hope if you would like to experiment with videos, and it's these short context windows is probably in the past, and I'm pretty sure that we will have more and more models that are going to be available with very large context windows, especially for people who are interested to understand more about the grounding. So let me go to the next screen.
This
Now, I wanted to talk about Gemma. So, some of you heard about Gemma, and it's our first open model. It's not an open source model, it's our first open model that we created in a very lightweight. So, these models are very good if you would like to start doing your experimentation. And if there are people here who are joining us from McGill as researchers, then Gemma is actually a great way to start experimenting with. It's available on Hugging Face. You can actually use it on your own data. You can start prompting it, and you can fine tune it as well. It comes in two different versions, 2 billion parameters and 7 billion parameters. Compared to the model that I was discussing earlier, 2 billion and 7 billion is very small. If I can give an example, maybe I can show, trying to find something here. So this is, let's say, the Gemini model, and Gemma is this model. So it's very lightweight if you'd like to put it on your hardware or on your devices. So Gemma is also a model that is open today for people to test, similar to I want you to think about Llama 2, the small version, lightweight model that you can also test and start serving for your customers or for your personal use cases. I added a slide for Imogen here because I know that there is a lot of interest within Imogen, and today we don't know what we're able to do with the image generation type of model. So I just wanted to highlight the fact that today we don't only help you generate images, and there are so many tools that exist to generate images, and I'm starting to see more and more tools that generate videos at the same time. Today I was reading an article about people who used two researchers who used to work at Google DeepMind, who also invented a tool that's called Hyper to generate videos. So you will see more and more of these tools, but how do you leverage them? So at least for Imagen, you can generate images if you would like to do product descriptions. Let's say you're working in the e-commerce field and you'd like to create a sophisticated logo or sophisticated product design, then Imagen can help you generate these images. Also, if you'd like to edit the image, so if you have already many images and you'd like to edit them, it's great. The third option is tuning that I did not mention before. So if you do have a large amount of image data and you'd like to tune the model on these images and then tell the model, hey, I want you to leverage all the images that I give you, and now I want you to start being creative and generate similar products, then the model is going to be able to do that as well. And the last part is captioning or visual questioning and answering. And this is very important. Why is it very important? Because I still see people spending hours and hours every day analyzing forms. So if you are in a position today where you go through lots of pages and you're trying to find the relevant answers, actually generative AI models today allow you to do your OCR very quickly. So you can take the full text from the picture, and I'll show you a demo on that, and then ask questions. You can say, what is this field about? Can you calculate the sum of all the amounts mentioned in this report? What is the hospital mentioned in this report? What was the car model that was mentioned in this report, especially if we're talking about a car accident report for an insurance company or a similar use case. So Imagen can not only generate images, but can also have a great understanding of the images. I see a question in the chat, but I am not able to read it. Nabil, if you can help me reading it.
Yes, is the generated image or text unique every time, even for the same request?
That's a very good question. So for text and image, it's two different things. So for text, we do have a variety of parameters that we play with when we're working with large language models. So we do have the temperature, we do have the number of tokens in the output, we do have the top P and the top K. So there's some research that says if you ask the model the exact same question and you set the temperature to 0, you have a very high chance of getting the exact same answer. So yes, you do have consistency. For images, I believe it is more rare, but yeah, you need to set the parameters to a certain value to ensure that the image is the same. I would love to understand more. What are you aiming to do? If you are actually looking to have consistency in the answers, it's one thing. If you're looking to diversify the answers, it's another thing, and we can help you or support you on both of these use cases. I hope it answers the question. So we talked a lot about Imagen, we talked about Gemma, we talked about Gemini, we talked about Chirp, we talked about Cody. So now we saw all or in different types of models that are able to generate a variety of modalities. One thing I wanted you to see as a demo is how Sherp executes speech to text, because we don't talk a lot about these models, but many people are looking for this type of models. And I will give you a quick example. Even if you are working on sentiment analysis on certain products, or you are working in the marketing department and you'd like to see if your customers are mostly satisfied or unsatisfied at the end of the call. So you'd like to transcript the conversation first and then explore sentiment analysis second. But if you don't have very high accurate transcription, then sentiment analysis is probably not going to be as good. So I wanted to show you how we do chirp speech-to-text compared to a generic speech-to-text model. So as you can see, we do have a conversation that you're going to hear right now, and you'll see that generic speech-to-text output is on the left, and the chirp output is on the right.
Good afternoon, November 851 Tango Bravo 5000, and we have whiskey.
November 851 Tango Bravo, Daytona approach, good afternoon, expect a visual approach, runway 7 left.
Roger, we'll expect the visual for 7 left, thanks.
So, I don't know about you, but I personally did not get most of it. It was very noisy in the background, it was a little bit hard to understand, but Sherp was able to understand it and transcript it in an accurate way. And as you can see, there's the red part and there's the green part, where the green part is actually a very complicated term to understand, like the N851 TB. And one of the things I mentioned before is that you can either leverage a model that has been trained on a very large amount of data and that has so many parameters that it's able to understand the complexities within the words or within the audio, or you can fine-tune the model on your data. And I see many companies do that. So if you do have specific terms that are unusual for other people, let's say if you're working in the medical field and you know that these terms are frequently used and you'd like to do speech to text, and you know that the model are probably not familiar with these words or these terms or these entities, then it's probably a good way to fine-tune it first and then apply the model. Lastly, I wanted to share few thoughts before we talk about the use cases. You saw that we were talking about different models, but we started with one point. We said that consumer needs are different from enterprise needs. And even if you are building a very tiny, small project at home, I want you to consider yourself as if you're building an enterprise grade solution, because you want to scale it. You want other people to use it. You probably want to package it and give it to other people or sell it to other people and maybe generate revenue out of it. So today the focus was mainly on models, but there's more than a model in this story of an application that is going to be useful for thousands of users, right? It's not just choosing the right model. It is, what is my input? What is my desired output? What is the accuracy of my model? Is my data secure? Is my model being trained in Canada? Is it being served in Canada or in the US if I'm a governmental entity? Is the cost reasonable for me? Can I afford it? Is it scalable? If today I have 5 users, tomorrow I have 5 million users, can it still be as good as today? So if you're building an application that is based on a large language model, I want you to start thinking about the scalability of the model, the infrastructure of the model. If you're serving the model for, as I said, 1 million users, it's not the same as serving it for few people. Am I going to use the output of the model in downstream processes? So do I need the output to be structured? Then maybe I'm going to use function calling, or maybe I'm going to use JSON to have the output structured into a JSON format. So this is probably another topic that we should discuss, Nabil, but I wanted to make sure that everyone in the room today knows that it's not just a model question, and I perceive personally that today we have hundreds of models. Maybe in 2 years, if we talk again, we will have thousands of models, because most of these big companies who built these models, they started open sourcing the architecture behind. They started open sourcing the best practices, and Apple just published a good research paper that I can share with the rest of the audience today, on what are the best practices to train a multi-model model. So that's why I don't want you to rely heavily on the model, but instead understand what is your business problem, which model fits the best for today. Maybe tomorrow you'll have a better model. What is my AI infrastructure? How is the security of my data? And how can I scale this idea or this business? So now that we talked about all of that, I'm going to pause for a second before moving to the use cases and see if there are any questions.
So there was a lot of questions actually, and at this point, maybe we'll let you continue and then get to the question and answers. But there were some questions about Bard versus Gemini. There's a question about, how do they compare from your perspective? And then there's the idea about how do we, like all the ethics questions about not being used for misconduct, what are the guardrails, etc. So these are the types of questions that will be coming your way. So you may want to either incorporate them into your discussion from this point, or we can take the questions. And then we had a question on academic misconduct, etc.
Okay, sure. I will try to answer any question today. I just wanted to show a, a live demo for the audience instead of just talking about the use cases. So I will show the demo quickly, and if I'm not able to answer these questions right now, I will answer the questions offline, and we'll share the answers with everyone who asked these questions. So let me share my screen. And here you're going to see that I am going to test my model in front of everyone. So here I'm using Google Cloud because I am already used to these models, but I do have actually a demo on a different model so that we are a little bit diverse today. So one of the use cases I think is very important to think about is social media, marketing, content generation, product description. And I met with a friend recently, and she was telling me that she is working on thousands of products and she has to generate descriptions. So she was using a consumer-based solution to generate a description. And I told her, oh, that's great. So I wanted to show you how Gemini Pro works on that. And the result is probably not, it's not going to be the impressive part, but I want you to leverage it as how do we scale this? So in my prompt here, I said, outline 5 unique social media campaign concepts of a new line of eco-friendly skincare products. I want you to include target audience focus for each campaign. So I get 5 campaigns. I have some hashtags, which is very trendy with the public today, Skincare with Purpose giveaway, the Eco Skincare Community, the Behind the Scenes Sustainability Tour, the Nature Knows Best Photo contest, the Green Glow Challenge. So all of these are very creative. Now, one thing I wanted to highlight in this demo is that we always think about the business need and we always think about the scalability. If I want to write this prompt 1,000 times, what should I do, Rihana? It's not feasible for me to just sit down and write the prompt and wait for the answer. So how can we scale it? So first of all, I got a question earlier talking about the parameters and how to have consistency. So this is the temperature parameter that we have on the right. But we do also have another thing. And I think that other platforms also provide it. So if you're not familiar with Google Cloud and you'd like to use other platform, I believe that many platforms do have the same feature. So if you click on Get Code here, you'll see that it's able to generate the code for you to write the prompts. So what each one of you can do, if you do have thousands of outlines that you'd like to generate or thousands of products or even more, what you can do is that you put all of these products in a Google spreadsheet or in a CSV file. You put them in different rows, and then you call this row, and then you make sure that the model goes through each one of them and generate an output. It doesn't take a lot of time to develop. It's probably 10 to 15 minutes to develop maximum, but then you can sit down, sit back for a little bit, and let the model do the magic. So this is one thing I wanted to showcase. And for this, we're using Gemini Pro. And this is the, let's say, the medium version of Gemini, because I'm only using text languages. The other use case here is that I asked Imogen to generate an image of a woman with diverse features wearing a dress made of recycled materials, standing triumphantly on a beach at a sunset. So when I opened this picture, I was actually impressed by how realistic this woman looks and how the beach with the sunset also look like. So that was for me interesting. If I would like to start brainstorming, even if I don't want to leverage this as my product campaign, I can just get an idea of how I would like to take some shoots of my model. I did the exact same thing with Ideogram. See, I'm open. I use other tools. So Ideogram is an amazing, fantastic tool actually to generate images. And I wrote the same prompt and it was able to generate me a picture of this lady. If you look in detail, you'll see that there are some features that these models are great at generating, like the beach, the sun, the sky. But sometimes when you get into the eyes or the chin or some details, it's not as accurate, but it's okay. We will get there. We should not be harsh on these models because they are also still in development. So I wanted to show ideogram because you can choose whether you want to do a photo, illustration, 3D, typography, cinematic. You do have different styles. You can use the ratio, you can use the model, you can use if your visibility is going to be public or private. And I can show you the website really quick. And I'm not being paid for the marketing of any of these tools, by the way, but it's quite impressive what you can do with these technologies. So leverage it as if you do have a graphic designer, and we're not replacing graphic designers here, but as if you have a friendly assistant who can help you with generating content. Another use case I wanted to show you here is how we're using Gemini Pro Vision, which is a tool that takes images as an input and gives you back the text. So what I said in the prompt here is describe what happened to this car. So it says it looks like the car has been in an accident. The front end of the car is extensively damaged and the airbags have deployed. There's also a large amount of debris on the ground around the car. It is not possible to say for sure what caused the accident, but it appears that the car may have collided with another vehicle or object. So that's quite accurate. If you put the temperature a little bit down, then it will make sure that it only says whatever it sees. Another use case I wanted to show you here is that I used a sample letter to an insurance company for a medical claim that I found on Google, which is and none of this data is actually confidential or private, so it's a picture that was open to everyone. So I used this letter and I asked the model to extract the text from this image, and this is what I was talking about earlier. And I also asked the model, if possible, to answer all of these following questions. So I said, what is the amount claimed in this letter? What is the name of the sender? Let me zoom in. What is the policy described in the letter? And where was the patient initially treated? And here I'm going to submit again, and we'll see how many seconds for it takes to answer the question. So it says the amount claimed in this letter is 3,200. So if we go back, you'll see that the amount was 3,200. The name of the center is Bert Kelly. And if we go back here, you'll see that it's Bert Kelly, even though I chose a picture that is blurry on purpose. The policy described is the policy number 462870002, which is here, which is correct, and the patient was initially treated at Rainbow Clinic, which is also correct. Let me see. Can you see it, Nabil? Perfect.
It's in the start of the second paragraph. I was treated at
At
Rainbow.
Rainbow Clinic. Yeah. So I actually do have a last use case I wanted to show you, especially for people who would like to automate their processes. So here I ask the model to extract the items from this transcript. And let me use for this one, I'll use the Ultra model. So the speaker ID is 0, the transcript is hi there, welcome to Philosophy Coffee. What can I get for you today? And hi, I would like one matcha hot with whole milk, and then one matcha iced with oat milk. Both of them small, please. Actually, wait. Yeah, can you make the iced one a large? Also, I want to get a chia pudding and a croissant, and that's all for me today. Thanks, bye. So we'll see what the model is going to extract without any specification. So the model was able to actually create a table format for me. So imagine yourself working for Wendy's or Starbucks or McDonald's, and this use case has nothing to do with these companies. It's just to make it closer for you to understand the example. And you get, instead of having the transcript, instead of having the audio, you actually see this in a table to avoid the error and to avoid the food waste. So these are some of the use cases that I have been testing recently, and I thought might be interesting for you to give you more context on how you can leverage these large language models. I also made a big list of examples in the presentation, but we didn't have time to discuss this all. But hopefully you can leverage these models and others for your use cases. And yeah, hope it's helpful.
Well, thank you, Rihana. It is 11 o'clock. So what we will do is, if Rihana, if you have some time, we can continue. The recording will go on. So for those who want to drop off, and because you have other meetings, please, you know, feel free. And we will continue for a couple of minutes if Rihana has the time. And, you know, you have the recording so people will be able to check it out later on. So let's start with the questions, and we'll start. The first question that came our way was more on the academic side, and I found that to be an interesting one. And if you don't mind, I'll take that one. The question was from Chloe Ann, and she was asking a question about how do we, and I'll summarize it at least. You know, it's uh, how do we treat ChatGPT, generative AI in education? And I'll give you the simple answer. The simple answer is today. At least today, we're saying, and I'll put to you what we actually say in our documentation, in our course outline, and then I'll tell you where we are with it. You know, this is we're saying ChatGPT and equivalent, you know, that use of technologies such as ChatGPT are prohibited and will be considered violation of the code of student conduct. That's the official statement. Now, today I'm giving a course called Applied Data Science. Actually, part of applied data science, we're teaching some students know how to program in Python, some do not, some are beginners, some are more intermediate or expert. So what we have done is actually we have shown them how to use generative AI as part of the course. So generative AI is their companion throughout the course, so they can, you know, like the example that was given by Rihana about documenting the code, explaining the code, generating code is part of it. So now this puts us in a very interesting position because when assignments are submitted, we're telling them you can use, you know, generative technologies. You know, we have kind of broke this rule over here and we say, please use it. Now the real question is from an instructor and class perspective, how do you know, how do you correct students? Who are you correcting? Are you correcting the generative AI? You're correcting the students? Who are you giving feedback to? This is the real challenge that we have. And we've had a discussion in class on it. If people are interested, we can have a separate discussion on this particular topic. But it's very interesting because the level of the work was beyond what students do normally, but this is what we want people to do. The tools are out there. If you think in industry, the tools are out there. Why not use them? Now, the question is, how do you use them responsibly and learn at the same time? That is one of the big challenges that we have. And how do you assess learning along the way? I hope this helps. I'll just stop here and we'll move on to other questions. I think there were some other questions and I'm going through it here. And there was a question on how does Gemini Pro compare to ChatGPT image generator? You don't have to answer it. If you want to, you can.
Let's avoid the comparison
Okay,
between models.
I would think so. I
I
would
would
go
I
for the
would I would
guardrails.
say I would say whenever you're comparing, it's really depends on your use case and on your need. And benchmarking today is very different. But if you'd like me to give you the most realistic answer, I would say go to both of their technical reports and compare the benchmarking results. Then you'll probably get your answer, but I don't have neither the right or I don't think it's going to be useful for you today if I tell you, oh, this model is definitely better because tomorrow it may change. So it depends on your need. It depends on your use case. It depends on what you're trying to generate, especially in image generation. It's a new area. Um, it's it's true that we had guns in the past and we started some experiments. Today it's more accessible to everyone. So it's really a case by case basis, and I don't have the right to say which one is better, and I don't think it's also appropriate to say to do that.
So Rula asked a question: how do you avoid these AI models from being used for misconduct, such as making deepfake pornography, for example? And this brings up the question of guardrails. This brings up the question of corrections, indirectly, but I wanted to throw it in because sometimes you find errors in in what comes out, and you say, "Please, this is wrong. Please correct," or please relook at it. How is that dealt with within the models?
That's actually a very good question, and it's very important. So it depends from a model to another, but large language models and multimodal models, they have been trained on a massive amount of data. And some of the data can be harmful, actually, either whether in text or images. It can be inappropriate. So yesterday I saw a very funny meme that says, you don't ask a woman for her age, you don't ask a man how much he makes, and you don't ask a company how did they train their models, what is the data they used. It's actually the answer is there. What did they use to train their models? Did they make sure that they were labeling this harmful, discriminatory, violent content as it is so that the model recognize it or not? I know that at Google, we invest a lot in these technologies. And this is why when dealing with customers, we provide them with indemnification. So if anyone has any legal issue with any of our model, we take care of it because we know that when we train our model, we make sure that all of our data has been carefully labeled. So now the training part is probably something you don't control, but there's something you as a user can control, which are the safety guardrails or the safety checks. It has different namings. So one of the things that you can specify in the parameters is you can have kind of it's like a range from 0 to 1, how much you want the model to make sure that it's not generating any violent, harmful, sexual, discriminatory content. As an example, Gemini and other models, they are already put into the maximum for this. They are set up for a maximum value. So there's absolutely no way we're going to generate this type of content. Even if you ask the model to say, hey, I want you to generate some bad words or curse words, or I want you to be discriminatory, the model is telling you, I'm sorry, I'm not going to respond. So there's some understanding in the model itself. So if you're using a different type of model, and they have these safety filters, make sure that these safety filters are set up properly, especially if they are being used in a chatbot for users and you have teenagers or you have kids who may be just, they would like to play around and they would like to test the model. So I would say it's a multi-step process. First of all, it starts with the training data. How did you train the data? Second of all, how do you set up the safety guardrails? Third of all, it's still an area of research, but many researchers are trying to see if they can add a rule on what to answer and what not to answer. So maybe you would like to add in the context that this model is only going to be answering mathematical questions and is not going to be interacting with users about violence or pornography, like you said, or any other examples. And if you find out that the model you're using does not have these safety guardrails, then in that case, you have to be more careful and probably reluctant in using these models.
Any other questions? Like, I'll leave it to the audience. This is important. Like, this is really your session. Like, I have lots of questions, and I'll just wait to.
Yeah. So the way I wanted to answer this question in particular is that there are two different ways to have these guardrails. There's the proactive and there's the reactive. So if you're not able to do the proactive approach, where these models provide you with some content filtering or having probably a human in the loop that is going to monitor the answers, or maybe fine-tune the model in a way that it only answers a certain question, then you'll have to go with a reactive measure where you you implement a system that is going to filter the output. So if it sees any discriminatory answer or any harmful or violent content, then it will filter it right away after that. So think about it as if you have the model, you have the input, and then you have the output. So instead of having it in a proactive way in the output within the model, then you add another layer to it where you have a system that analyzes it and take away any unwanted output.
Excellent. When it comes, you say you manage or you work with 300 languages. The training usually, most of the input is usually in English because that's the language where you find the most on the internet. If you take a Wikipedia and others, what does that say about the need to get more people to work and make information public, but also about the corpus that's available to train for in different languages like African languages, Arabic, or others?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think that there are so many efforts right now collecting this data and trying to create this corpus of data. But if we don't have the data, we cannot train models. So that's why it takes a lot of time to train a large language model. It takes a lot of time to train a specific domain model. It takes a lot of time to make these models available in other languages. And sometimes you're a citizen from France and you're using the same model as a citizen from the US or Canada, but you think that this model is not good for a simple reason that the model is actually not understanding your language. So I think that the number one thing to put in mind is that the data that is available in English or Spanish is probably larger than other languages. So it's a cumulative and it's a collaborative effort for all of us. If I personally speak Arabic, so Arabic is my native language. So if I get to know people who are able to scan many books in a specific domain, and then we do the OCR, and then we create a large database, and it's probably going to help the other people from the Arabic community or the Arab community to fine-tune their models on these domains. So the number one step I would say is gathering the data. The step number two is cleaning and processing the data. As I said, in most of these data sets, you will find that the authors are talking about people. They're talking about their ages. They're talking about their gender. They're talking about, sometimes you can even see their phone numbers. So there's an effort on how to anonymize this data or how to hide the PII data, or for medical field, the PHII data. And then you start training your model on it. But there is an
Excellent.
effort going on, Nabil, especially from these large companies on adapting these models on Arabic and French. And I know that our models are pretty good in more than the English language.
Wonderful. Any last questions? If not, we will thank Rihana for being with us, and we would thank you all for being with us. This was a enlightening session. Very, there's a lot of information being shared with us, and we hope that it makes you think about the possibilities of what you can do with generative AI and move the yardstick forward in your personal, professional lives, etc. Any last comments, Rihana?
I wanted to thank everyone who attended today, and I hope that you all create more and generate more with generative AI. Think about it as a tool that will help you progress in your careers, that will make you more productive, sometimes make you healthier, happier. So think of it as a tool that we leverage for our benefit instead of being scared of it.
Wonderful. Thank you all. This series will continue. Our next presentation, I believe, is on data governance. So yes, the recording will be shared. If you registered for the course, you shall, for the course, for this seminar, you will be getting the recording that comes with it. So you'll be getting a follow-up email with the link to the recording. Thank you so much, and see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rihana. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, we end here.